Thank you for joining our webinar today. We'll be focused on the topic of reporting from your Microsoft PPM system. My name is Annie Levand, and I'm with a Microsoft Gold partner called PROJILITY. We've been implementing Microsoft project and portfolio management solutions for over 17 years for large enterprises, including everything from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working and what work, and they have a hard time getting consistent reports and metrics to make project-based decisions. We're known for having about a 98% on-time budget track record for successfully implementing these solutions for clients. We offer services and solutions in 3 core areas. Deployment and consulting services, PROJILITY's core business. We provide professional services for successfully planning and implementing Microsoft Project Portfolio Management, including Microsoft Project Online, integrating PPM with line of business applications, and delivering strategic portfolio management solutions to support top-level management planning. We also have a growing Microsoft Power Platform practice where we are actively working with clients to build application workflows and report to automate their most important business processes. PROJILITY offers a set of pre-built software solutions and accelerators based upon 17 years of experience, including a set of Hammerhead products that provide improved process access to your cloud PPM data, accelerate access to visual reports and dashboards using Power BI, connect data between your PPM system, Microsoft Teams, and extend connectivity to Active Directory to improve visibility, insight, and control over your work, people, and projects. Finally, PROJILITY provides post-implementation support services, including expert care, designed to assist your PMO with gaining on-demand expertise on the solution supported. We also have a full online automated e-learning offering that can improve consistency and adoption of all your users for your project management tools. We have a set of upcoming webinar coverings, topics ranging supporting Agile and Waterfall projects in your PPM and DevOps systems to do portfolio modeling through learning what's new and coming with the Project for the Web Light Touch project management solution with Microsoft. All webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for one or multiple events through our Eventbrite link provided, or by searching Eventbrite PROJILITY in your browser. Hope you can join us for these sessions, which are designed based upon your feedback over the last 6 months. If you missed the PROJILITY Virtual Project Conference in April, you can watch it now online. It's broken into 3 sessions, a session on Agile and Waterfall projects, a panel of 3 experienced clients answering questions on their PPM deployment and adoption, and a session focused on the direction of project management tool markets. You can visit the link here, which takes you to the YouTube playlist with the videos posted. All videos from this and previous series are now available on our best practice playlist on YouTube, listed on this page. Topics range from managing your digital transformation program using PPM technologies to integrating PPM with Agile and line of business applications. Feel free to subscribe and access this library at any time and share with your colleagues. With that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Rob Hirschman, partner at PROJILITY, who is going through our content today. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks everyone for joining. For those who are familiar with Microsoft PPM Project Online and now Project for the Web, we get a lot of questions from clients about how I can do better reporting out of these solutions. So we'll really be focused on that today, and as the tools evolve, our sessions evolve as well. So we'll start out by talking about some of the reporting challenges and requirements we're seeing. We'll talk about some of the different reporting tool options that Microsoft provides to access and report on your data, and also give you some good practices on structuring your PPM reporting environment and analytics in a way that meets your business needs and requirements. We'll show you some sample reports that show examples of the different types of reports you can get out of the tool, provide some architecture and planning options, and give you some questions to ask and planning to get started down this road. Finally, towards the end, we'll answer any questions. So if you have questions along the way, just log them in the Q&A manager in Teams, and we'll take those towards the end. So when we talk to clients, they come up with about 5 or 6 key critical challenges that are consistent across every organization. The first one of those is really being able to understand the status of their projects, having consistent reports and consistent KPIs and metrics that show what health and risk and overall status and burn and cost and resources are, and be able to report on those consistently. Now that requires consistent information coming into a system, but having reports that get that information out in a consistent way that isn't overly burdensome to complete is really a key requirement. Also being able to feed management with this kind of information so that they can make better decisions. So think of this as the top level decision makers want to know what's going on across multiple projects as well as resources. Another key question is really trusting in the data, making sure it's really consistent, really trustworthy, so you can trust it to make those kind of decisions on your people, your projects, as well as the work underlying that. And also we find in a lot of matrixed organizations, there are different methodologies and approaches to project management going on. Some organizations have a formal project management process, others use an SDLC, some of them use Agile as a methodology or a safe Agile. Different groups use different methodologies, and be able to bring that together to do consistent reporting and have consistent or semi-consistent metrics is really important. We often find that the key challenge is reporting is often disjointed. And while a lot of organizations have gone to a single or consolidated set of reporting tools, the definition behind what goes into those reports becomes unique to the different business units or departments. So it becomes disjointed, and there's really a goal to centralize some of that. And also, is there a way to really improve upon your processes? At the end of the day, you want to use the reports to get better at delivering projects, delivering management information, to delivering to the business the commitments you've made. So some of these key challenges that we've seen, hopefully these are fairly consistent in your organization. But there are very consistent challenges we find when you're looking at an online project management system as it relates to what do you need to do and access your data. And the first part of that is purely data access. How do I get to the data that's in my project management system? The second challenge is really around the staging of that data. Now that I have that data, a big blob of information, what do I do with it? I don't want to just dump it into an Excel spreadsheet and have every user go in and figure out what they want to do. I want to extract it, transform it into something that's useful, and then load it into a reporting environment where people can make sense of that and easily go in there and get the kind of reports and dashboards they need to make decisions. Also having a data architecture that's scalable. We found that organizations that have used PPM initially, when they get up and running, they're very comfortable with it and they have the reports they need. But after 4 or 5 or 6 years, suddenly you need to go back and re-architect that data structure, because a lot of questions have come up that you haven't really thought of, and you start thinking about, well, how is my PPM system set up? What kind of data architecture do I need to support the kind of reporting that I'm looking for going forward as the organization matures? So having a consistent data architecture becomes really important. Always report creation and delivery of those reports. Do I want to deliver things into people's inboxes? Do I want people going in and developing their own reports? I want people to go and click a button and run a report? Is it ended up in Microsoft Teams? What are the different delivery options? And who is owning the creation and modification of those reports? That's another challenge. Then we have dashboards, and everybody wants dashboards that give them the information to make decisions. At the end of the day, a dashboard is a bringing together of different data from reports. So you have to have a reporting structure and an architecture in order to get to dashboards that are useful, and then delivering those dashboards in a useful format. Providing user access and security controls so people only see what you want them seeing and do what you want them doing, so they can make decisions based on their part of the organization. You know, a business analyst in finance looking at financial projects needs very different information than the CIO does, and providing access to the right information and the right reports is important. And also leaving yourself open to what the future looks like. You know, none of us know what this looks like, but we know there's going to be more and more requests for reports and changes to a system to drive better reporting. We find about 80 to 90% of the support of the PPM systems after the first year or so is all about additional reporting. So you want to really be ready for this and think about the future. So when we talk about reporting solutions, not just for PPM, for any kind of an application, it all begins with the end question in mind. What are the business questions you're looking to answer? And if you can start with that, if you can define what those questions are, that will help determine the data you're going to need, the format you're going to have, how it's going to be delivered, and what reports are going to be required for what audiences. And a lot of people say, hey, just bring us your out of the box, we'll get started with that. And that's a really great starting point. You know, templates and experiences from other clients is great, but the reality is every organization is always going to have unique reporting needs. So budget time and budget money and budget resources for reporting, even with your initial deployment, because that's something that's going to evolve over time, but you definitely want to get a couple of key reports out the door. And always be prepared to go past what we call pre-built reports, because you're going to want to take those reports and cater them specifically to your language, to your culture, the KPIs you have. Out of the box just means something you build off of. But begin with the end in mind. What are those questions you want to ask? So we start looking at, in a PPM world, the typical reporting audiences and what needs they have. And it begins usually with the program managers and portfolio managers. These are the people that are sitting at a higher level than the project. They may be managing a portfolio of projects that roll up to products. They may be running a program or multiple programs that have a series of projects and initiatives within it. They want to measure and track the risks and the issues across the program and portfolios. They also want to do performance management across programs and portfolios. They need to understand interdependencies or relationships between these. And also, with Agile taking hold, they need to track Agile work progress, as well as your typical waterfall projects as well. That becomes yet another challenge. So we look at that role. When we talk about the project managers, these are the folks that are managing the actual work. These are the folks that need your traditional project status reports, the issue and risk reports, project performance reporting, and also Agile activities. They may be managing a project where some of the work is being done by a development team over in an Agile environment, like an Azure DevOps, but they're managing the progress, the health, the resources, the risk, and the cost of the project in a PPM solution. So your project managers are the initial consumers of a lot of the information. They're creating and publishing those reports to generate weekly status reports, and that's usually kind of the level 1 reporting. We also find there's a requirement for resource managers. These are people managers to get reports on resource capacity, to understand what the demand or incoming requests are for resources, to track and manage the utilization of their resources, and also track things like time compliance. If all the team members are going in and tracking time and timesheets, what is the compliance? Who is submitting and not submitting their time? Are people doing a lot more non-project than project time? And be able to forecast work in the future for those resources. So resource managers play a very specific role in the system in the process, and they need their own reports. And finally, executives, the folks at the top. These are the folks that are investing. They're making the decisions on what to do and why they're going to do it. They really want to know the performance of the entire portfolio. They want to get governance reports that show them how are things progressing and where things are not progressing. Why is that? Why are we spending certain money on certain programs and not on other ones? Or why is this one over budget and this one is actually on schedule? Being able to ask those questions in a real-time way and looking at the dashboards that are fed by the information below is really important to them. A lot of times, these are the folks that have a direct impact on the cost and the cost performance. It's their money they're investing from a corporate perspective. They want to know, how are we spending versus where we should have been? Portfolio risk and issue management. Tell me the top risks across certain portfolios or programs so those can be proactively addressed. And finally, these are often the people that are looking at the benefits, the return on investment. I know we're spending money. What are we planning to get out of these investments? Whether it's cost reduction, revenue recognition, whatever it is. So, our program and portfolio managers, they want the summary and the detail. Project managers, summary and detail, but on different sets of information. Resource managers, summary and detail. Executives, they really want the summary, and a lot of them that are hands-on want the ability to drill down into the detail, or they just want to know who owns what so they can pick up the phone or start a Teams meeting, and they want visuals. They're very, very visual. They don't have a lot of time. They're running the business or running the organization and the operation. They want pictures to say what's going right and wrong. Are we on track or not? And if something is starting to slip, just let me know ahead of time so I know my top people are working on it. So these are the typical reporting audiences, and that plays into the kind of questions that are being asked. So in the Microsoft reporting world, there's two typical sets of types of reports or types of tool sets we look at. And on the left, what's become very, very popular over the last 5 or 6 years is Power BI. Power BI is interactive and visual reporting. It provides the visual scorecards, the dashboard reports, the kind of one-pagers where you can drill down and click in and out of different things and get information on demand. It's also mobile friendly, so you can actually bring it with on your tablet, on your phone. If you're in an airport, you get the kind of reports you're looking for. And it's really analysis based off semantic data at a certain level that is being kind of munged in the background, that's visualizing it in those dashboards or reports. On the other side of the fence, we have paginated reports, and paginated reports have not gone away. There's still a pretty big requirement for paginated reports, specifically when you need a lot more detail. These are operational in nature. They're transactional. They're your project status report that's got 30 pieces of information on it. It's really hard to fit that into one Power BI dashboard. Maybe I want to print that out. I want to share that with team members. It's made up of continuous lists of information, multi-page tables. We're doing really critical analysis of information. Paginated reports become very, very useful. And also, if we need to do any kind of SQL queries, inline queries or analysis and things like that, that's where paginated reports can hold that logic. So when we look at it, we have our more visual on the left and our paginated on the right. And you want to think about kind of what that intersection looks like, because there's a pretty good chance you're probably going to need both at some point. It doesn't mean one tool or the other. We're going to talk about those different tools here next. What are those tools? And we start thinking about it, we begin with just Microsoft project users, your project managers. They're using Desktop Project Pro. This is best for your individual project managers driving individual project reports. It gives them the ability to get their underlying project data on demand based on what's in the schedule. So there's nothing about issues or risks or deliverables or action items. There's no cross-project reporting or any of that stuff, but it's really when PMs are working in a disconnected or single project environment, that's where your desktop scheduling and reporting works the best. And it feels a lot like working in Excel there. Excel, which is everybody's best friend, is really great when you're looking at project information for a quick analysis of the data, when you know specifically the data you want to get. When you're thinking about tables and charts, it provides that analysis and modeling of data within and across different projects, so you can start to look at the data. And it's very easy for business users. Most business users are very comfortable and familiar with the Excel interface. When we start looking at Power BI, that's really when we start looking at cross-project analysis and trending, formalizing any visual reporting we have, the ability to drill down through different levels of reports, one-time page or one-page reports that give you a snapshot of the analysis at that point in time. And also mobile reporting. That's a really big benefit of Power BI. There are mobile-specific reports you can develop based off reports you already have, and it gives you that dashboard-like experience. The final area, which is often overlooked in PMOs, which is actually very, very important, and often we see it as a starting point, is your paginated reports. And this is either using SQL Reporting Services or what's called Power BI Premium Capacity, which is an extended capacity in Power BI beyond just the Pro. This is really great for those paginated reports when you've got 5 or 6 pages of information. Maybe you've got a program report where you want to go across multiple programs and you want to sit down and really analyze it and look at all the detail all in one place. When you want to print that out, when it's multi-pages, when you have specific formatting guidelines, this is a good example of the kind of tools you want to use. When you want to distribute that in an email or make it printable, and if you have any complexity beyond the one pager, SQL Reporting Services or Power BI Premium is the tool for you. So think about in your environment, you're probably going to use a combination of these based off who the audience is. So how do you go about building a solid reporting strategy and approach? Well, it all begins with the inputting of some information from the organization. And at the core of your PPM system is basic project information. You've got projects and related metadata. Metadata could be the department or the division or the charge code. You've got resources and related metadata. Those are the people doing the work or people potentially roles that are forecasted to do work, and different metadata about resources such as skills or department or capabilities or costs. You have the actual work being performed, hours or duration. You've got the assignments, which is the lowest building block in your project, which is when I take a resource and smash it together with some work. And I want to know what is the assignment, how many assignments do certain people have over a period of time to see if they're over or underutilized, if I'm going to go over my plan or under my plan. And finally, we have timesheet data. We can capture timesheet data as a discrete set of data in our system. So think of this as the core of your PPM data. And then you have the ability to extend this data out. And this is where you can get very, very creative, but this is often where the organization starts to really design out a solution. We may be capturing financials, and financials may be coming from within our project management system or outside of it. We may be capturing organizational strategies and initiatives. We may be wanting to map those strategies, initiatives, and goals to what's below in the core. How are the projects actually adding up to those strategies or delivering value to those strategies? We may find agile work, which is in a system like an Azure DevOps, is out there, and we've got progress and sprints and burn downs. How does that relate to the projects we have at the bottom where we're tracking work and cost and resources? We may have portfolios where we want to aggregate this information to a higher level and do portfolio level reporting. And then we may have things like programs, and you can dot this as well. You can extend that out to different kinds of components as well. So once we've established our core and our extension on that, that's where we're going to go out and we're going to determine where is this data going to come from. Typically the core and a lot of the extension data is going to be in your PPM environment. And your PPM environment down at the bottom, Project Online, Project Web App, which has your enterprise projects, your enterprise resources. It has that SharePoint environment for all the collaboration information, issues and risks and deliverables. And that can be extended out as well. That's all within a SharePoint Online environment. And then we may have additional systems of data. We may have our financial system in SAP or PeopleSoft. We may have intake coming in from ServiceNow. We may have information in Azure DevOps for our work progress around our agile workloads. We've got those other systems that are there. And now what we want to do is based on that, we start establishing what a data model looks like and where we're going to be storing the data from one or multiple systems. That has to be done in order to get to a good architecture. And this is the data design and the relationships, which is going to lead to the reports. And a lot of people jump in and start building reports directly off the PPM data. They don't think about all these other components, which are really good practices. And this is where, from a data model and data storage perspective, you're looking at, do I want Power BI to be the source of the data, the source of the truth? I'm going right from my data in my system into a reporting tool. Do I want to have a dedicated PPM data warehouse where I can keep a history of that data? I can keep snapshots of that data over time. Or do I have an enterprise data warehouse, an EDW or a data lake, where I want to store that information that's already there, just adding project level information and that extension, and then growing that out with my other enterprise data. So you have a couple of different options here how you want to do this. From there, after we have our data storage and our data model established, we start to establish our reporting structure. What reports do we need? What are the audiences? Who do we deliver those to? And then we can get to a point where we have dashboards. Starting with give me a dashboard without defining everything before that is a very, very difficult challenge to get to. So we've got our outputs. And again, we want to start with designing the outputs, which may give us a lot of insight into the inputs and the process in the middle. So if you're starting to think about kind of building out a reporting strategy, and PPM is going to be really core to your business, it all begins with having this kind of a structure in place. And this is where, again, on the reporting side, Excel, Power BI, SSRS, Power BI Premium, they're going to play a role on the reporting side. So, the value of having a data architecture like this before you go and do it, it lets you in the organization pivot quickly when new demands emerge. And you can definitely start with something very foundational and very basic, Power BI and Project Online, and start to grow that out if you think this is going to have some enterprise characteristics or you're going to be bringing on lots of users from different businesses. It allows you to pivot. Examples of a pivot, the environment changes. Suddenly you need to track COVID-related information. Maybe you're in a hospital system and suddenly a quarter of your work shifts over to a different bucket that's being funded maybe by the federal government or a grants program. Being able to change on the fly and do different kinds of reporting and structure or update the structure of your PPM system becomes really important. Maybe you've got new executives that come in and they start asking new questions about your projects you had never thought about answering because nobody asked those questions. You need to be ready for that, and having a real good data architecture in place can prepare you for that. Maybe you got folks from the business, some of your key stakeholders of those projects. They're asking questions as well, and they want more information about the projects that they're frankly funding. Who's working on them? When are they being delivered? Why are things late? Why are we doing them a certain way? Those kind of questions, and then you can develop some reports that give them that information. And finally, having some flexibility around different reporting tools. As you've seen from Microsoft, Power BI has evolved from what it was a very basic visualization tool 4.5 years ago. Now it has pretty advanced capabilities in there, things like mobile and paginated reports. So you want to provide flexibility in your tools. You may have other parts of the business that use other tools too. You want to provide them access to the data they need. The reality is doing a little planning upfront goes a long way when it comes to accessing your data and do reporting. So what we thought we'd do is walk you through some example reports. And on each of these pages, you'll see some visuals. In the bottom right, you'll see the tool that it's actually coming from. So you'll see here in the middle of this, we have a visual, and this is actually a report coming from the Project Professional desktop client. It's called a work overview report that shows you a couple different quadrants. We see the remaining work on a project, the percent complete, the actual work performed. We can see a bit of a burn down on that. We can see by role and individual on the left, the resource statistics. At the top, we can see the work overview, how much has been performed against what was targeted. And finally, we see a burn down of the plan and the planned work against what our baseline was. This was all developed in Microsoft Project Professional on the desktop. See in the bottom right, we can get a milestone report out that shows us late milestones, milestones that are up next, completed, and again, what our burn down on that is, planned and remaining. And finally, reports like critical tasks. We can start to see tasks that are on our critical path. What are they? When are they supposed to start and finish? How far along are they? Who owns them? This is the kind of information maybe a project manager working on their own, just trying to develop basic reports, can get out of the Microsoft Project Professional reporting tools that are built into Project today. When we start looking at more cross-project reporting is when we look at Power BI at the bottom right. And this is an example of a COVID-19 report that we developed with one of our clients, where they're tracking actual work for different types of activities related to COVID. They had to pivot very, very quickly. They had to capture information on that, on the different COVID projects, so they could capitalize that in a very different way. Again, having a good structure around this allows you to pivot quickly. Here's another report, and this actually shows us a couple of different pivots. We can see how many different projects do we have by type, whether it's ad hoc, priority, maintenance, or enterprise projects. We can start looking at projects by status. What status are they in, whether they're in flight, completed, or in the funnel. And then we can start looking at them, maybe mapping them by application. Part of their extension was I want to track projects against the applications we're supporting. So we can start to see which applications we're spending the most of our time on and what projects roll up to that. We can start to see information, the accomplishments, and the plan. This is something a management team member can go in, drill into their division, and see how their projects are doing very quickly. Again, this is a Power BI report. We can start to do additional analysis. We can look at the project category at the top, the count of the portfolios in the program, as well as the different project types we have. Again, more really good examples of the type of reports you can get. This is an example of a weekly status update that actually shows us the different types of reports by division, the different flavors of reports, grants, legislative, audit, the cost by phase down at the bottom, the percentage by different program, as well as the different projects and life cycles. This is a dashboard report we have in the pre-built report pack we have, kind of the starter pack called Hammerhead BI, which shows you the overall portfolio and programs within a portfolio. In this hierarchy, we have multiple programs, and we can see the health of each program and drill into that. If a program is in the red or the yellow, we can drill into that and get to the next level, which actually gets us down to the specifics on a program now, again, using Power BI here. Now we can see at a program level, we've got 12 projects within the transformation program. We've got the budget and the forecast, and that can be sourced in our project management system or coming from our financial system. Down at the bottom, we have a listing of all the projects. We can see information such as start and finish, percent complete, cost, and this can all be, again, configured based off the specifics of your organization. We can see the cost by project within the program at the top and how far along we are, actual to date and forecast, how much we've realized, the active risks that are in the program, and the active issues. We have the ability to drill into any of this information to get to the next level of detail on a project, on risks, on issues, on costs. So this is the drillable nature of Power BI. We also, from Power BI perspective, get a lot of requests for resource requests. So this is another example where on the top left, we see the assignment work by role. So we can see the amount of work analysts versus SMEs versus project managers, trainers have. Down at the bottom, we see for a specific role, the assigned work over the next 60 days. So this is pulling from that assignments table we talk about for all the analysts we have and how many hours in total the analysts have. In the middle here, we can see the projects that are taking up most of the resources, time, and work. We can see on the right, we see all the projects consuming a lot of analyst hours, and we see SME hours. We also see sponsor and trainer hours here too. These are the kind of reports that can help you make better decisions about your resources and your work. Again, looking at those different core components and then rolling that up against programs and projects and portfolios. Here's another example of a report that actually shows you plan versus actual work on Agile projects. We find a lot of people are kind of confused. How do I track my work on Agile projects? People are using Azure DevOps, and that should be tracking their work. Well, in Azure DevOps, you're tracking your progress. Different activities are sitting in different sprints, and they're moving between sprints, and people aren't really tracking the hours they're spending. They're tracking the progress against the activity. Started, in progress, done, and when is it going to finish? In our PPM system, what we want to do is we want to track for time accounting purposes how much time a resource spent maybe against an epic or a feature, but no lower than that. So we can see here John Glenn at the top level. He's working on the Acme ERP Continuous Improvement Agile project, and he's got two features he's working on, the rate module and the skill module. He's got a certain number of planned hours, and then he's got a certain amount of remaining, and we can see the plan versus the remaining and look at the actual as well. So we can see, and the nature of Agile work is it's going to be flowing between sprints. So we often don't know when it's going to be happening, but we do know those hours are going to be spent. This helps us do a resource forecast on a resource to see how many hours they're spending against certain Agile versus traditional waterfall and non-project kind of activities. So we can make some assumptions, set up some rules in our system, and start to do reporting so we can track progress in terms of resource time on actual projects. Another example of a Power BI report for a lot of organizations using Azure DevOps, maybe they want to status their Azure DevOps projects. They want to track work items by state in the middle. They want to see how many work items are assigned to different assignees. Again, not impacting the time they're spending, but how many work items are out there. What's the status of those work items down at the bottom? And then on the top left, you can see active issues and user stories and bugs and tasks. Again, tracking progress in DevOps, but looking at the individual work effort and time spent in your PPM system. And that's a pretty good way to think about delineating that. Even getting down to a level where you're tracking sprints. You're doing your sprint tracking, again, in a tool like an Azure DevOps, and you're developing reports like the one you see on the screen here in Power BI, where you've got, against our sprint goal, where are we, committed and completed? What's our overall capacity here? How many work hours have we spent from a plan and actual, from a velocity perspective? So we can pull our plan, maybe from our PPM system. Our actual could be coming from Azure DevOps, but we're looking at things like burn downs, cycle times. We're looking at sprint goals and task monitoring. Again, are we realizing the value from the investments we're making in the products we're developing on the Agile side, and then how are we doing on the work and the resources on the PPM side, really delineating those two. When we start looking at paginated reports, that's when we're looking at SQL Reporting Services. This is an example of a project status report developed in SSRS or Power BI Premium. Again, you've got a lot more information than you might have on a Power BI report. We not only have the schedule, the financials, the description, the accomplishments, but we may want to generate a list of milestones across all of our projects in one report. And that's a pretty good example of a milestone report that goes across projects. We can even have specific formatting, as we mentioned. So you may want your project status report to have green bars or red bars or yellow bars, to have different status indicators in there that are different colors or shapes, that have a summary, capture accomplishments and plan. We can do a lot of cell formatting in SSRS or Power BI Premium that we can't do in Power BI. Things like open risks and issues. So it just gives us the ability to get a lot more granular and a lot more detail. Additionally, getting program reports. So this is an example in SSRS of a program level report where we've got program level metrics at the top for health and scope and schedule. We've got a description of the program. We've got a listing of all the milestones come within the program and within different projects. We can do program level risks, and then we can see a listing of all the projects below that that are within the program and how they're all progressing. And finally, looking at all the detailed steps, milestones, and activities within a program. So, integrated program management is a big request, and that's how Project Online, Power BI, Data Warehouse, SSRS can really bring the data together to give you the right kind of reporting. So, what does a reporting architecture look like if you're getting started or you're pretty advanced? The out-of-the-box architecture for these kind of solutions begins with a PPM system, and that's Project Online, where you're tracking your projects, your resources, all of your collaboration and your team site information, and that's all in a central place where you have that core all properly built out. People are operating in the tool and you're getting good data. We're then going to tap into that data. And again, the feed out of the backend reporting database is something called OData. And it's streams of data coming out that Microsoft provides you that you can then report off of. That's going to give us a stream of our projects, one for our resources, one for our tasks, one for our assignments, issues, risks, and deliverables. And we can extend this out if we want. And then any metadata around those custom information we have. We want to tap into that and make sense of that, have our extract, transform, and load, have our architecture, and then get to the point where we're using our reporting tools like a Power BI. Then we generate our reports from that. And that's an out-of-the-box architecture right there that most people start with and gets to be pretty successful. As you're starting to scale this out across your enterprise, what does a scalable enterprise architecture for this look like from a reporting perspective? Well, you still have the same source system. And instead of feeding that in directly into your reporting tool, because there's some downside, a reporting tool is not a database. What we're doing is we're putting a PPM data warehouse in the middle that's doing a scheduled or on-demand update of that data into a formalized, structured SQL Server database. And the benefits of that is we can not only tap into those OData feeds at the top, we can use that data warehouse to tap into any other custom information in the tool. They may have custom lists that are in SharePoint on SharePoint sites. You may have data that's in the back end through the API. You may have other data sources that are there, other customizations you've made. Those customizations don't come out through OData, but we can extend that out through tapping into and using the data warehouse. And now we're not only tracking things like projects and resources and tasks and assignments, we're expanding that out to custom elements of issues and risks and deliverables. Maybe we want to look at monthly and weekly snapshots of data and look at last week versus this week versus a month ago. Maybe we've got unique SharePoint lists, such as change requests or action items or decisions. That can all be built into that feed into that data warehouse out of the box. We can look at period indicators. Maybe the watermelon period indicator where it's green on the outside, but it's really red on the inside. Things are okay now, but they're getting worse. We want to know that. And any other kind of information. So having that database or data warehouse in the middle gives you a lot of flexibility and it becomes more scalable. Then we can hit that with different reporting tools. One of the benefits of a data warehouse is you can use SQL Reporting Services for those paginated reports. So it actually gives you more reporting flexibility, and then you get to the reports. And one of the nice benefits of this is, a lot of our clients use Azure DevOps or Agile tracking. They use SAP for financials. Maybe they use Jira for issue management. They use ServiceNow for service management. You can tap into that data and bring that in and merge it together into your data model to do your reporting. So in both cases, you can bring it in and around your data warehouse or directly into your reports. It's a really good flexible way to do data integration when you have data in different systems versus actually doing formal systems integration, which can be much more complicated. It's harder to support. It's actually a lot more expensive as well. So think of this as setting up an architecture that can allow you to scale out the reporting and even include data from other systems. A lot of our clients do move to a PPM data warehouse. Performance is a big reason. OData, if you go in and you start pulling out tens of thousands of records, it can be very, very slow. It can take a lot of time to pull that data, and it can often time out. So if you think about it, if you have 500 people tracking time and each person has 5 assignments for the week, you can do the math on that, and each assignment is a unique record. And if we start looking at that over multiple years of time and pulling that out, you're looking at millions of records being pulled out on a weekly basis. It can be very slow versus going in and actually putting it in a data warehouse and pulling deltas of the data over. It's a lot more efficient. Also, Microsoft specifically recommends this for very large data sets. Power BI, keep in mind, is not a database. It's not a repository for your historical data. That data should live in another system like Project Online, sit in a data warehouse, then you can move it in for your reporting. Also, if you have data that's not in OData in any field you may be getting in on your projects that doesn't come out natively from OData, you need a way to get to that. And also, if you're starting to extend out your processes, maybe you're starting to do action items, starting to do executive decisions or changes, any of those things, building them into unique SharePoint sites, you need a way to scan all those SharePoint sites and pull that information over. Data Warehouse does that. If you want offline access to your data, and there can be multiple reasons for doing this, maybe from an audit perspective, you have auditors that come in once a year and want to look at all of the data over the last 12 months related to your projects and your time, maybe your timesheet audit report, things like that. You can actually provide them access to that through a database in a data warehouse. You have data portability. So let's say you want to take that data with you one day. At some point in the future, you're going to turn off Project Online. You may use another system. You may use a new instance of Project Online. You may want to migrate some stuff. You have the portability of bringing your data down, and then you have access to that from a reporting perspective. So you always have the history there. You also have greater accessibility for any non-Microsoft reporting tools. A lot of organizations have gone down the road with Tableau and Click, as well as Power BI. And with that, if those tools do not support OData, then you need a way to get to the data in Project Online, and putting it in a SQL Server data warehouse is a very useful and very efficient way to do that. There's also a lower cost point here for paginated reports. If you haven't made the commitment yet to Power BI Premium and it's just the PMO's money versus enterprise money, you can save some money by having your own dedicated data warehouse and running SSRS on it, one-time licensing costs and some maintenance versus paying Power BI Premium. And finally, it always becomes a destination for other data. If you have other data across your enterprise, finance data, help desk data, human resource data, you want to bring it together and report on it around your projects, you can extend that SQL Server data warehouse and database out. So those are some of the benefits of it. But in reality, this entire thing and this entire strategy is probably going to involve different tools. You'll use Excel, Power BI, SSRS. That's just the reality. What you want to do is start with the end in mind. Figure out the questions you want to ask, what your users really need information to do their jobs and make decisions on, then select your tools. Don't assume everybody's going to use the same tool. And while getting started with a basic tool set is a really good starting point, there's a couple different things you can do to get started. And just reiterating what was just said, what is the question? What are the specific requirements you have for reporting from your PPM system? Ask that question first. Also ask who needs access to this information? Who needs to make decisions based off the data? And then what technologies do you have today or are planned to roll out or are supportable in your environment? Because someone's got to pick up the phone when they say, hey, I need a new report, I need a new dashboard. If the PMO doesn't have those resources on board, who are you leaning on? That's the question. Another key question is, what is security going to look like as you scale this thing out? You need to maintain data security around specific reporting data. Maybe you've got financial data in some of your reports. You don't want certain people like contractors to see. You need to be able to lock that down and have a good architecture that supports that and controls that. Devices are a really, really big deal. Not everybody is sitting at a laptop or a desktop every day. You may have folks that are traveling, back to traveling now. They may be working with their tablets or their iPhones or their Android devices. They need to access the reports when they need them. And that's a really good way to think about it. What devices are people using? Ask the question. And also a big question is, are people ever going to want to extract the data out and print it out or look at multiple pages of information? That will help drive some of your selection around your tools. And then finally, should I consider a data warehouse, a PPM data warehouse, as part of our overall architecture? If you're going to be growing this out, you're going to be doing timesheet reporting, large scale reporting, or supporting multiple business units, it's a really, really good idea because you're going to start to run into a bit of a wall just from a volume perspective with OData. So, what are the benefits of putting a really good strategy in place around your reporting? Well, you'll have meaningful metrics, data you can trust, coming from a reliable data source or data sources that people are going to rely on to make their business decisions. You'll be able to support that regular cadence of the business so that people can do their weekly status, their monthly status, their program reporting, all in a consistent format and consistent set of tools. You'll be able to provide reports for every audience. You're thinking ahead of this. You're thinking of those 4 different audiences we talked about and providing reports to people that are going to need it even before they ask for them. You'll be able to get your executive buy-in. One of the big selling points of these solutions is getting it in front of executives. They can see a dashboard of what's going on. They can see it on the big monitor. They know exactly how the projects are being invested in, they're investing in or doing. And finally, it provides you with a lot of long-term flexibility. If you need to adjust your process, maybe you're adopting a new methodology, you're going from waterfall to a combination of waterfall and agile, or you need to take on a new large program or new contractors, it gives you that flexibility to modify your system, and you have a data architecture that can scale out. So before we jump into any questions, I just want to let you know, there are 2 components that PROJILITY offers beyond our services. We do have what's called the Hammerhead PPM Data Warehouse, which was designed to provide that offline data access to store your cloud data either on-premise or on your servers if you want. It allows you to own that data. You can extend that out to do things like trending, data integration, systems integration, as well as you can grab that extra information that's in your PPM system to maintain the history and records for compliance. Then we do have our Hammerhead BI, which is a pre-built reporting pack and data model that is a great set of building blocks. Comes as a bundled app as a part of a deployment, and it gives you the program, portfolio, project, resource, timesheet hierarchy a lot of organizations are looking for when they get started. That can all be tailored as needed. So the key is, tools are just a broader part of your overall strategy. With a service and technology approach and really adjusting what people want and really asking the business questions, it can help you get to a good end state where people have information to make decisions. So that's what we wanted to cover today. I think we're going to open up the floor to any questions. Annie, you can let us know if there are any questions in the Q&A manager. You can just log them now.
Here's a question, Rob. Will the recording be available for later viewing? Yes, it will be. We will be posting this on our YouTube page. You may also reach out to us for a PDF version of the deck today. Any other questions?
Looks like we're good, Annie. We can just wrap it up here.
We do have a set of upcoming webinars covering topics ranging from supporting agile and waterfall projects in your PPM and DevOps systems, to do portfolio modeling through learning what's new and coming next with Project for the Web Light Touch project management solution from Microsoft. All webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for one or multiple events through our Eventbrite link provided, or by searching Eventbrite PROJILITY in your browser. Hope you can join us for one of these sessions, which are designed based on your feedback over the last 6 months. All videos from this and previous series are available on our best practice playlist on YouTube, including today's session. To learn more about PROJILITY and how we can assist with improving and implementing PPM reporting, or to get more details on some of our offerings, reach out and we'll set up some time to review your needs. I'm Annie Levan with PROJILITY. My contact information is listed here. Thank you for attending our webinar today. Have a great day.